Good afternoon. On this Friday, December 5th, I'm Yumna Naufal. These are today's headlines. After 4 months of protests, Electricité du Liban contract workers reach an agreement with the EDL administration. Islamist leader Anas Sharkas threatens to kidnap Lebanese women and children in retaliation for the detention of his wife in Tripoli. And Lebanese-Russian ties are strengthened with the visit of Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov to the country. The contract workers of Electricité du Liban have announced the end of the 4-month-long protest after reaching an agreement with the company, ending a 3-year crisis at EDL and 4 months of the workers laying siege to the company headquarters in Beirut's Mar Mikhail. It was announced at a press conference with Agriculture Minister Akram Shayib, EDL Chairman Kamal Hayek, and Energy Minister Arthur Nazarian, who said the deal was due to be an initiative by Walid Jumblat and, of course, sponsored by Nabih Berri and Michel Aoun, the respective backers of the contract workers and the EDL administration. The deal will see 897 contract workers hired as full-time employees after an entrance test at the Civil Service Council, while the rest will continue working for private service providers. However, a mechanism will be employed through which the company will gradually employ the full number of workers who will have advantage in future job openings. After the announcement, Hayek reassured citizens that the company will not ask for electricity bills accumulated over the 4-month strike in one lump. ISIS commander Anas Sharkas, better known as Abu Ali al-Shishani, is threatening to kidnap Lebanese women and children and end negotiations over the captive soldiers and policemen unless his wife and children, detained by authorities last week, are released soon. In a video posted on YouTube, Shishani, flanked by 2 masked gunmen, lashed out against the Lebanese army for detaining his wife, Ola Mithkal al-Ouaili, in Tripoli 2 days ago. Ouaili is being held in a prison cell at the Lebanese Defense Ministry next to Baghdadi's alleged ex-wife, Saja Dulaimi. Shishani said he would start kidnapping Lebanese women and children if his wife is not released soon, adding that the Qatari-appointed mediator in the ongoing hostage crisis would not be welcome anymore in the outskirts of Arsel unless the case is resolved soon. The Lebanese army has dismantled a 5-kilogram bomb discovered in the northern city of Tripoli. The bomb was found inside an empty water bottle by an army patrol in the Al American neighborhood in the northern port city and immediately dismantled by a military expert. In other local news, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov was in the country today. He held talks with several Lebanese politicians, including Prime Minister Tamam Salam and former President Michel Sleiman, after his arrival in Beirut last night. He is scheduled to meet with several other officials discussing local developments as well as relations between Lebanon and Russia. On top of the agenda is terrorism and the consequences faced by Lebanon from the war in Syria. In addition, he will take part in a celebration tomorrow at the UNESCO Palace, sponsored by Foreign Minister Gebran Bassil, marking 70 years of Lebanese-Russian ties. Speaker Nabih Berri says the meeting held yesterday between Finance Minister Ali Hassan al-Khalil and Nader Hariri to prepare for a dialogue between the Future Movement and Hezbollah could be the final one, and that talks might begin as early as next week. Berri was quoted as saying by his visitors that the first dialogue session could be held next week if the agenda becomes ready after yesterday's meeting. The meeting was the second this week between Nader Hariri and Khalil, political aides to former Prime Minister Saad Hariri and Berri, respectively. The speaker said the agenda would contain items that the two rival parties could agree on, such as the presidential election and the electoral law, without touching on disputed issues such as Hezbollah's arsenal and its military involvement in Syria. The trial of former pro-Syrian minister Michel Smeha and his suspected accomplice, Syria's National Security Chief General Ali Mamlouk, over charges of plotting assassinations in Lebanon, have been postponed by Lebanon's military tribunal for the 4th time now. After Mamlouk failed to report to the court, the Lebanese judiciary has issued an arrest warrant for Mamlouk and sent Syria a former notification of charges but has not received any response. Samaha, a former information minister, and Mamlouk face charges of transporting explosives from Syria to Lebanon in an attempt to assassinate Lebanese political and religious leaders. If convicted, they both face death penalty. Lebanese law allows for Smeha to be tried in court with Mamlouk in absentia, but so far the court has not taken that approach. The Islamic State is advancing on a key airbase held by the Syrian regime in the province of Deir ez-Zor in Syria, having captured a village close to the base. At least 19 Syrians, government soldiers, and 7 ISIS fighters were killed as ISIS keep on their offensive against the base. According to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, the video uploaded by ISIS members to social media purportedly showed the armed group in control of the Al-Jafra village. The military base is located just outside of the provincial capital, which has long been used by government forces to launch air raids on opposition fighters. Gaining control of the area surrounding the base is also vital to access its rich oil fields, which have been fought over since the country's conflict began in 2011. Coming up next, NATO's engagement in Afghanistan wraps up after 13 years. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching the 4:20 o'clock news on Future Television. Tens of thousands of pieces of winter kit have been delivered for internally displaced people and refugees in the northern Kurdish region of Iraq. A United States cargo plane carrying the kit landed at Erbil International Airport, the fourth of a total of 7 cargo planes that will arrive to provide aid for the 1.1 million displaced people in the region. The cargo was welcomed by the U.S. Consul General in Erbil, Joseph Pennington, and the Erbil Governor, Nawzat Hadi.
Temperatures are already dropping now close to 0 at night. During the day it remains still comfortable with sunny days, but with the rain setting in and as we move into December and January, we'll see the temperatures going down below 0. These kits you see in the nose of the plane that are being offloaded, these are insulation kits. They're actually inner lining that we put inside the tents, and they increase the insulation and therefore maintain greater heat inside the tents.
At least 19 people have died in Russia's North Caucasus Republic of Chechnya after security forces stormed 2 buildings, including a school, in fierce gun battles with militants. The fighting, a rare blow to the stability in the war-battered republic, ensured by years of harsh rule by Kremlin-appointed leader Ramzan Kadyrov, erupted just hours before Russian President Vladimir Putin was to give his annual State of the Nation address in Moscow. Militants traveling in 3 cars entered Chechnya's capital of Grozny, killing 3 traffic police at a checkpoint and occupying the press house in the center of the city. Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov, who traveled to Moscow for Putin's address in the Kremlin, said the militants were connected to Doku Umarov, a Chechen and longtime leader of Islamic militants in the northern Caucasus, who died last year.
The terrorist attack that happened in Grozny overnight, it is aimed at 2 people. One is Ramzan Kadyrov, and he is someone who has been very, very active in supporting Putin, supporting Russia in so many areas and so many places, including in Crimea. And it's an annual address. It is an extraordinary address given the circumstances within Russia and outside of Russia. And a lot of people were watching Putin, a lot of people were watching Russia at this very moment. So an attack happening at that time, in my view, had the aim of embarrassing Putin in front of his own people and in front of the global audience. The people who did that may have come from outside Chechnya, and it seems plausible, and I would not even rule out that this is somehow connected to international terrorism. It is clear that from the standpoint of Islamic State, Russia is as much of a foe, as much of an enemy as the United States and the West.
Afghani President Ashraf Ghani says that peace is a top priority for the country as international security missions and Taliban attacks surge. His comments come at a joint conference with British Prime Minister David Cameron on the sidelines of a conference in London on Afghanistan security, corruption and political reform.
It is the right time, it's the right transition. Afghans in our history, a very long history, if only needed direct combat support in the last 13 years. We hope that we will never need direct combat support because the last thing we want is more blood. Peace is a top priority for us, And we're determined to solve those problems politically that can only be solved politically.
We do everything we can in partnership with every country that we work with to address the problem of terrorism and try to reduce the impact of terrorism, and that goes the same for every country across the world. Now that means, of course, a security partnership. We have a security partnership with Afghanistan, we have a security partnership with Pakistan. But it's not simply about security, it is also trying to stop the poisoning of young minds that can turn people towards extremism and violence. And that is a challenge in Afghanistan, it's a challenge in Pakistan, frankly it's a challenge in my own country too. So we work with everyone across the world, not only to tackle and defeat terrorism, but also to drain the well of poison on which it sits.
So I believe security will grow. I think it'll get better, but no one should be surprised by an attack that is going to take place here or there. And obviously, at this particular moment, the Taliban or whoever is going to try to do some kind of a, augmented effort in order to try to have an impact. What's impressive is the Afghans are handling it. The Afghan police, the Afghan military, the Afghan security force, the Afghan intelligence, they are coordinating the effort. They're upgrading, they're even stepping up now more their protection in Kabul. And, nobody has suggested that violence is suddenly going to end. But what's important is to remember there can be no safe haven anywhere, not in Pakistan, not in Afghanistan. And that is the current policy both of the United States, but most importantly of the Afghan forces.
8 soldiers and 3 policemen have been killed in an attack on an army camp in Indian-administered Kashmir as the state votes in local elections. 6 of the attackers also died in the assault, a suicide raid near the line of control that divides nuclear powers India and Pakistan, often described as the world's most dangerous border. The attack occurred just days ahead of a visit to the region by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Kashmir has been locked in a conflict since 1989, with some separatist groups aiming for independence for the volatile region, while others fight to merge it with Pakistan. Emotions are running high in New York City as thousands of protesters take to the streets in U.S. cities to protest against a grand jury's decision not to charge a white New York City police officer accused of killing an unarmed black man. Eric Garner was killed in July in an apparent chokehold by police officer Daniel Pantaleo after he stopped him on suspicion of selling untaxed cigarettes. A video of the incident shows Garner pressed on the ground by police officers, with Pantaleo wrapping his arm around his neck and Garner groaning, "I can't breathe." Combined with a decision by a grand jury last week not to charge the white officer who shot and killed unarmed black teenager Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, the event is igniting rage across the United States and sparking debate about racism, police violence, and a U.S. law enforcement system perceived to unfairly target African Americans and other minorities. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. After 4 months of protest, Electricité du Liban contract workers reach an agreement with the EDL administration. Islamist leader Anas Sharkas threatens to kidnap Lebanese women and children in retaliation for the detention of his wife in Tripoli. And Lebanese-Russian ties are strengthened with the visit of Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov to the country. Those are your headlines for this Friday. Make sure to catch us tomorrow for a very exclusive interview with James Jeudi. Take care and we'll see you tomorrow.
And the assassination of Prime Minister Hariri.
نتمنى يوقف العهد التجاري والحدود التجاري.
بدنا أولادنا الله 15 يا ابني يخافوا الله.